Have you ever checked your pocket change, only to find what looked like an ordinary penny that turned out to be worth thousands? It happens more often than you might think. Welcome back to Numismatic Narratives, where today we're exploring 3 Lincoln cents that might be sitting in your collection, a forgotten jar, or even passed down from a relative who had no idea of their true value. I'm talking about the 2001, 2011, and 1963 pennies. Coins that look ordinary at first glance, but under the right circumstances can be worth more than their weight in gold. Let's dive into these copper treasures and uncover what makes them so special, starting with a coin that showcases one of the most fascinating mint errors of the new millennium. The 2001 Lincoln cent might seem unremarkable at first. After all, billions were produced that year across all U.S. mints. But among these billions lies a rare variant that has captured the attention of collectors worldwide: the 2001 Lincoln cent double die obverse. Now, before we get into the specifics, let me take you back to the beginning of the 21st century. The year 2001 marked the third year of the Lincoln Memorial Reverse design's final decade, a design that had graced the reverse of our pennies since 1959. The U.S. Mint was operating at full capacity, striking billions of coins to meet the demands of commerce across the nation. It was during this high-volume production that something extraordinary happened at the Denver Mint. In the coin-making process, dies, those steel rods with negative impressions of the coin design, are created through a hub-and-die system. The hub, bearing the positive image of the design, is pressed into the die multiple times to create the negative impression needed for striking coins. Normally, this process is precisely aligned, but occasionally, between hub impressions, a slight rotation or misalignment occurs. When this happens, we get what numismatists call a double die, where elements of the design appear doubled. The 2001 D double die obverse penny exhibits doubling most noticeably in the word liberty and the date. When you look at this coin under magnification, you'll see a clear shift in these inscriptions, almost as if they're echoing themselves. It's subtle, not as dramatic as the famous 1955 double die cent, but to the trained eye, it's unmistakable. The doubling is most evident in the L and I of liberty, with a slight clockwise rotation from the primary impression. What makes this error particularly collectible is that it wasn't discovered until several years after the coins entered circulation. By that time, many had already sustained wear and damage, making well-preserved specimens increasingly difficult to find. Experts estimate that perhaps 15,000 to 30,000 of these error coins were produced, a tiny fraction of the more than 4.3 billion pennies minted in Denver that year. Regarding value, this is where things get exciting for collectors. A 2001 D double die Lincoln cent in circulated condition can command anywhere from $20 to $50, depending on the level of wear. But in uncirculated condition, the price jumps dramatically. A mint state MS-63 example might sell for $200 to $300, while perfect MS-67 specimens have fetched upwards of $3,000 at auction. The highest recorded sale I'm aware of was a perfectly preserved MS-68 red specimen that hammered for an astonishing $7,800 at a heritage auction in 2018. But here's where I need to offer a word of caution to both new and experienced collectors. The market has been flooded with counterfeit double dies. Some unscrupulous sellers take ordinary 2001 D cents and manipulate images to make the doubling appear more pronounced than it actually is. Others may even alter the coins themselves. That's why certification from reputable grading services like PCGS or NGC has become almost mandatory for serious collectors pursuing this variety. The easiest way to authenticate a genuine 2001 D double die is to examine it under 10x magnification and compare it to verified examples. The doubling should be consistent and appear as a slight shift, not as unnatural thickening or blurring of the letters. Remember, machine doubling, which occurs during the striking process and not the die creation, can sometimes be confused with true double die varieties. Machine doubling typically appears more as a shelf or flattened extension of the design, whereas true doubling shows complete but offset design elements. Beyond its value as an error coin, the 2001 D double die penny also represents something fascinating about American numismatics: the democratization of the hobby. Unlike rare gold coins or key-date silver dollars that may be financially out of reach for many collectors, these modern errors can be found by anyone with enough knowledge and a keen eye. There are stories of collectors who have found these valuable pennies in bankrolls or even in their everyday change. One such story involves a Denver postal worker named Ray Martinez, who in 2009 was sorting through rolls of pennies for his collection when he noticed something odd about one of the 2001 cents. After having it authenticated, he discovered he had found a double die worth several $100s at the time. His discovery was featured in a local newspaper, inspiring countless others to examine their own change more carefully. When evaluating the condition of a 2001 D double die cent, color plays a crucial role in determining value. Lincoln cents come in three basic color designations: red, red-brown, and brown. A fully red specimen, showing that original mint luster with no significant darkening, commands the highest premium. Red-brown examples, showing some darkening but still retaining areas of original red color, fall in the middle of the value spectrum. Brown examples, which have darkened completely, still carry a premium for the error but at a lower level than their red counterparts. Storage and handling of these coins also require special attention. The oils and acids from human skin can accelerate the toning process, turning a valuable red specimen into a less valuable brown one over time. That's why many serious collectors use cotton gloves when handling uncirculated cents and store them in inert, PVC-free holders that won't react chemically with the copper alloy. The 2001 D double die cent also represents an interesting transitional period in American coinage. While the Lincoln Memorial Reverse would continue for another 8 years, the U.S. Mint was already discussing plans for the upcoming 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial cents, which would feature 4 different reverse designs celebrating Lincoln's life. In a sense, these 2001 pennies represent some of the last normal issues before a period of significant design changes for the denomination. What I find particularly fascinating about the 2001 D double die cent is how it demonstrates the continued relevance of traditional minting techniques in an increasingly digital age. Even as the mint was implementing more computerized design processes, these coins were still being produced using essentially the same hub-and-die method that had been employed for centuries. The human element, both in terms of the error itself and in the joy of discovery, remains central to the appeal of collecting. For those looking to add this coin to their collection, I'd recommend starting with certified examples from reputable dealers. The investment in proper authentication pays dividends, both in terms of resale value and personal confidence in your collection. Auction records show a steady appreciation for this variety over the past decade, outpacing many other modern coins and suggesting that its status as a collectible error is well established in the numismatic community. Whether you're a seasoned error collector or someone who simply enjoys the thrill of the hunt, the 2001 D double die Lincoln cent represents that perfect intersection of rarity, historical significance, and accessibility that makes coin collecting such an enduring hobby. Check your change jars, rifle through those inherited collections, and keep your eyes open at coin shops and shows. You never know when you might come across one of these modern treasures hiding in plain sight. And now we come to our third featured coin, which takes us back several decades to a transitional period in U.S. coinage, the 1963 Lincoln cent. This particular year represents the end of an era in American minting, making certain varieties from this date especially significant to collectors. I'm talking specifically about the 1963 D-Class 1 double die obverse Lincoln cent, a coin that combines historical importance with genuine rarity and visual appeal. The early 1960s were a time of upheaval for American coinage. Rising metal prices were threatening to make the intrinsic value of silver coins worth more than their face value, and even the humble penny was under scrutiny. The Lincoln cent, composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc since 1909, with the brief exception of the 1943 steel cents, was becoming increasingly expensive to produce as copper prices rose. 1963 would mark one of the final years of the traditional copper composition before the introduction of the 95% copper, 5% zinc composition in 1962, which was followed by the dramatic change to copper-plated zinc cents in 1982. Against this backdrop of impending change, The Denver Mint was producing pennies at a furious pace in 1963. More than 1.8 billion Lincoln cents came from the Denver facility that year, helping to meet the nation's growing coin demands. Yet among this massive production run, a relatively small number of cents were struck from a doubled die. The 1963 D Class 1 double die obverse shows pronounced doubling on the obverse front of the coin. When examined under magnification, you'll notice clear doubling on the date, particularly in the 963 digits and in the word Liberty. The doubling is what numismatists classify as Class 1, meaning it occurred during the hubbing process when the working die was being created. The hub and working die weren't perfectly aligned between impressions, resulting in a noticeable shift. What sets this double die apart from many others is the clarity of the doubling. It's visible even without magnification once you know what to look for, a distinct separation of design elements rather than just a thickening or blurring. This makes it one of the more dramatic double dies of the Lincoln cent series from this period, though it remains less famous than the legendary 1955 double die. The discovery of this variety came relatively early compared to some others we've discussed. By the late 1960s, examples were already being reported and cataloged by major variety specialists. However, public awareness remained relatively limited, and many examples entered circulation unnoticed. Today, it's estimated that perhaps 3,000 to 5,000 examples exist across all grades, a tiny fraction of the nearly 2 billion cents produced in Denver that year. The current market values reflect both this rarity and the growing appreciation for significant double dies. In circulated grades, a 1963 D double die cent typically trades in the $200 to $500 range, depending on condition. Uncirculated examples command much higher premiums, with MS 63 red specimens selling for $1,500 to $2,000, and gems in MS 65 or better fetching $3,000 to $7,500. The most exceptional examples, those graded MS 67 red or better, have sold for over $10,000 at auction, with one particularly spectacular MS 68 red example bringing $12,650 in a 2017 Heritage auction. There's a fascinating historical context that makes the 1963 double die especially poignant for collectors. This coin was struck during the final year of the Kennedy administration, just months before the assassination that would shock the nation. In fact, many of these pennies would have been in circulation during that pivotal moment in American history. The following year, the Lincoln cent would undergo its first composition change in over 50 years, making 1963 the end of an era in more ways than one. Authentication of the 1963 D double die requires careful examination, as there are several known double die varieties for this date and mint, though the Class 1 is by far the most valuable. The doubling should be evident on both the date and Liberty, with a slight clockwise rotation evident in the secondary image. Machine doubling, which occurs during the striking process rather than die creation, can sometimes be mistaken for true double dies. The key difference is that machine doubling typically appears more as a shelf or smeared extension of the design, whereas true doubling shows complete design elements. One fascinating aspect of the 1963 D double die is its connection to a broader pattern of quality control issues at the Denver Mint during this period. The early 1960s saw a number of significant double dies and other varieties emerge from Denver, suggesting that production pressures may have led to less rigorous die inspection than in previous decades. This historical context adds another layer of interest for collectors who appreciate not just the coins themselves, but the stories behind their creation. I remember speaking with an elderly collector at a coin show in Chicago several years ago who shared a remarkable story about this very variety. As a young man in 1963, he had worked as a bank teller in Colorado, not far from Denver. Having read about double dies in coin magazines, he made a habit of checking the cents that passed through his drawer. One day, he noticed the doubling on a 1963 D cent and recognized its significance. Over the next several months, he managed to set aside 12 examples, paying face value for them from his own pocket. He showed me one that remained in his collection, a beautiful uncirculated red specimen that had since been graded MS 66 and was worth thousands of times what he had paid for it. When evaluating the 1963 D double die cent, color and surface preservation are particularly important considerations. As with all copper coins, the original mint red color adds significant value. Red specimens show 95% or more original mint color. Red-brown examples retain between 5% and 95% red, while brown examples have essentially lost all their original color. The price differentials between these color designations can be substantial, often a factor of 2-3x between a brown and red example in the same numerical grade. Surface marks are another critical factor in grading these coins. Because the double die feature is on the obverse, marks on this side can be particularly detrimental to both the grade and the visual appeal of the variety. Collectors should look for examples with clean fields, the flat areas, around Lincoln's portrait, as these are most susceptible to contact marks and hairlines. The historical significance of the 1963 D double die extends beyond its status as a valuable variety. This coin represents the end of what many consider the classic Lincoln cent era. Within a year, the composition would change slightly, though not visibly. And by 1982, the cent would transition to the copper-plated zinc composition used today, a coin that looks similar but is fundamentally different in metallic content. The 1963 D double die thus serves as a notable representative of traditional American copper coinage. For those interested in building a collection around this theme, the 1963 D double die pairs nicely with other significant double dies in the Lincoln cent series. The aforementioned 1955, the 1972, the 1984, and others, creating a fascinating timeline of minting history through a single denomination. Such a collection tells the story not just of design changes, but of the minting process itself and how it has evolved and occasionally faltered over the decades. The market trajectory for this variety has been steadily upward over the past 2 decades, with particularly strong performance for high-grade red examples. As understanding of varieties becomes more mainstream, and as registry set collecting, where collectors compete to build the highest graded sets, has gained popularity, coins like the 1963 D double die have seen increased demand from collectors seeking to complete comprehensive Lincoln cent collections. Now let's move on to our second featured coin, the 2011 Lincoln cent. At first glance, this might seem like just another modern penny. After all, the Lincoln cent has been produced continuously since 1909, making it America's longest-running coin design. But among the billions of 2011 pennies produced, there exists a fascinating variety that has sent collectors scrambling through their collections and change jars: the elusive 2011 Philadelphia Mule penny. For those who might be new to the term, a mule in numismatics refers to a coin struck with dies that were never intended to be paired together. Essentially, it's a mismatched coin, and in the case of the 2011 Philadelphia cent, we're talking about a coin struck with the standard Lincoln Memorial reverse die instead of the Union Shield reverse that was officially adopted in 2010. Let me provide some context here. In 2010, the U.S. Mint made a significant change to the Lincoln cent for the first time in over 50 years. After the special 4-design series celebrating Lincoln's bicentennial in 2009, the Mint introduced a new permanent reverse design, the Union Shield. This design, featuring a shield with 13 vertical stripes representing the original states, was meant to symbolize Lincoln's preservation of the United States as one country. By 2011, all pennies were supposed to be struck with this new reverse design. However, numismatic researchers believe that somehow, at the Philadelphia Mint, at least one old Lincoln Memorial reverse die from the previous design was accidentally put into service. The result? A small number of 2011 pennies bearing the obsolete Lincoln Memorial reverse rather than the new Union Shield design. It's as if these coins are trapped in a time warp, featuring a 2011 date, but bearing a design that was officially discontinued. What makes this error particularly extraordinary is how it managed to happen at all. The U.S. Mint has elaborate quality control procedures designed specifically to prevent such mistakes. Dies are carefully tracked, stored, and eventually destroyed when no longer needed. For an obsolete die to find its way into production a year after it should have been retired represents a remarkable breakdown in these systems. The discovery of this mule variety didn't happen immediately. In fact, it wasn't until late 2012 that the first confirmed example came to light. A collector in Ohio was sorting through several rolls of pennies when he noticed something odd, a 2011 penny that didn't match the others. After consulting with experts and having the coin authenticated, the numismatic community was stunned by the confirmation of a modern mule cent. Identifying these rare 2011 mules requires careful observation. The obverse, front, is completely normal, featuring the familiar Lincoln profile designed by Victor David Brenner, with the date 2011 and no mint mark, indicating Philadelphia production. It's the reverse that reveals its special status. Instead of the Union Shield design, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial with the tiny figure of Lincoln seated inside, just as pennies looked from 1959 through 2008. In terms of rarity, this is where things get truly interesting. Unlike some modern errors that might exist in the thousands, the 2011 Philadelphia Memorial reverse cents are genuinely scarce. Current estimates suggest that perhaps fewer than 2,000 examples exist, possibly far fewer. To put that in perspective, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 4.9 billion cents in 2011. That makes this variety among the rarest modern U.S. circulation coins by percentage. This rarity translates directly to value. Even in circulated condition, a confirmed 2011 Philadelphia Memorial reverse cent can command $1,000 to $3,000. Uncirculated examples are significantly more valuable, with prices ranging from $3,500 for an MS-63 specimen to upwards of $10,000 for premium quality examples in MS-67 or better. The highest recorded sale to date was a perfect MS-68 red specimen that sold for an astonishing $17,625 at a specialized error coin auction in 2019. Given these values, authentication becomes absolutely critical. PCGS and NGC, the two leading third-party grading services, have authenticated a relatively small number of these coins, and their certification provides essential confidence for both buyers and sellers. Because this error involves the entire reverse design rather than subtle doubling or a minor die crack, the authentication process is somewhat more straightforward than for some other varieties. However, this hasn't stopped unscrupulous individuals from attempting to create counterfeits. One authentication challenge involves date alteration. Some fraudsters have attempted to alter the dates on pre-2009 memorial cents to make them appear to be the rare 2011 variety. Careful examination under magnification can reveal evidence of such tampering, particularly around the date area. Professional authentication is really the only way to be certain. Besides its rarity and value, the 2011 Memorial Reverse Cent has an important place in numismatic history. It represents one of the most significant design error coins of the 21st century so far. While there have been many varieties involving doubled dies, off-centers, and wrong planchets, the use of an entirely discontinued design makes this error particularly noteworthy from a historical perspective. There's an interesting story connected to this coin that illustrates just how unexpected such discoveries can be. In 2014, a nurse in Pennsylvania named Melissa Carpenter was counting out change for a hospital vending machine when she noticed that one of her pennies looked different from the others. Being moderately interested in coins from her grandfather's influence, she recognized that the reverse design seemed out of place for its date. Rather than spend it, she set it aside and later showed it to a colleague who collected coins. He immediately recognized its potential significance and advised her to have it authenticated. The coin turned out to be genuine and sold for over $3,000. Not bad for a penny from everyday change. Condition plays an enormous role in the valuation of these error pennies, perhaps even more so than with many other rarities. Since these coins entered circulation without anyone initially realizing their significance, many examples suffered where before being discovered. The typical color designations for copper coins apply here as well: red, red-brown, and brown, with the fully red specimens commanding the highest premiums. A fully red 2011 memorial cent shows that the coin was removed from circulation very quickly or perhaps never circulated at all. The 2011 Philadelphia Memorial Reverse Cent also illustrates something fascinating about modern minting errors. They can occur even in an age of advanced technology and quality controls. Despite computerized systems, metal detectors, and multiple inspections, occasional errors still slip through. This human element adds an excitement to modern coin collecting that might otherwise be missing in an era of technically perfect production. For collectors, this coin represents a tantalizing possibility, a genuine rarity that could theoretically still be found in circulation. While the odds are extraordinarily slim, given the small number produced compared to the billions of pennies in circulation, they're not zero. This creates what some call the lottery ticket effect in numismatics. The knowledge that even though chances are minimal, a life-changing discovery could be just a coin flip away. If you're interested in searching for one of these rare pennies, bankrolls of 2011 Philadelphia cents are your best bet, though they're becoming increasingly difficult to find as we move further from the date of issue. Some collectors have reported success by specifically requesting 2011 penny rolls from banks in regions surrounding Philadelphia, theorizing that geographical proximity to the mint might increase their odds.